It's amazing how much fossils can tell us about extinct living beings. Unless you reconstruct them this badly, then they aren't worth squat. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Speculative Wildlife Research Center. Fossils can be hard to interpret. Bones can separate and break after the animal dies, and then only some of them will fossilize. So you can imagine sometimes it can be hard to determine what the animal they belonged to was. That's why, both in reality and fiction, there are tons of examples of wrongly assembled fossils. So today we will try to reconstruct living beings based on very wrong fossils. So please consider liking and subscribing if you like this concept. And now, without further ado, let's get started. First up, this is the Magdeorg Unicorn, one of the most famous bat fossil reconstructions out there. Discovered in 1663, it's likely composed from bones of woolly rhino, mammoth, narwhal, and maybe some other things, resulting in this thing. Which, yeah, paleontology was still in its infancy. But still, damn. The story of said reconstruction is long and complicated, and for simplicity and mercy, I won't call out the people involved in this monstrosity. So, what is it? Well, its anatomy very clearly does not lend itself to a bipedal posture, since too much of the weight would be concentrated behind the legs. It's probable it wouldn't be able to walk on land at all. Rather, I think this body is better adapted to dwelling in fresh water. However, it's not the body of an agile swimmer, but that of a walker. You know, the same way hippos move on the water by walking along the riverbed. It would also walk by using its very articulated tail as a third leg, giving itself great support and motility. This tripodal motion is important since, as you can see, its head has a very narrow range of movement, at rest being positioned looking down, towards the water. Hence, this posture would keep its head above or nearly above water, where it would be free to feed on the vegetation growing near the water's edge. As they fed, their enormous horn would keep it protected from predators, who would have to risk being impaled before having a chance to bite at the unicorn. Having lived in Europe during the Ice Age, and in the water no less, it would of course need a lot of blubber to resist the cold. Next up, we will be having a look at the Togo Warus, from the video game 2 Point Museum, which is actually what inspired the idea for this episode over on our Patreon Discord. Its name is derived from the presence of two heads, one at the front and one at the back, which would constantly play tug-of-war as they tried to go in different directions. So first things first, based on size, general anatomy and vibes, I feel this one would most likely be some kind of hadrosaur. Of course, we've talked before about why two heads would be worse than one for a living being, and that is doubled if one of the two heads is looking directly backwards. Hence, this is clearly not another head, but a tail, an ankylosaur-like tail with a tagomizer. Between the two choices, I think the head with the tusks pointing downwards works best for the head, since said tusks would be great at digging and stripping bark from the trees. Meanwhile, the second head's tusk would point upwards, being in a perfect position to hit a larger predator. And, since it looks like a head, it works as a decoy, with the attention of a predator being attracted towards said tail instead of the real head. The dorsal sail would act as an anchor point for its musculature, allowing it to swing its tail with great force. Now let's end with a bang. I present to you this idiot, the Bolton of Mammoth, so named from the sketch's author, Roman Boltonov. To be fair to him, he was a merchant and drew exactly what he saw based on the very first woolly mammoth discovered with its skin still preserved. And even then, it was being eaten as soon as it unfroze. So as you can see, sometimes even the worst guesses are the best people can do with what they had at the moment. But enough history, let's remake this mammoth. You might notice very quick the lack of a trunk and, well, a neck, which really make it hard for us to think of this as an elephant, or a relative of them. It looks rather more like a pig, a huge, calm-limbed, stout pig. And all of these are adaptations to a large size, which is in itself an adaptation to the cold. And even the ears of this animal are extremely reduced to avoid losing heat through them. The main point to work with here are the tusks. Unlike a boar or an elephant, this animal's tusks are pointed outwards in a very wide arc, forming a long plow in front of the head, meaning they were most likely used to dig around the snow and soil in order to unearth their food. While a great asset, sadly the tusks would be in the way of actually picking up and eating said food, meaning this animal would need a long, muscular and dexterous structure in order to eat. A tongue, of course, would make the most sense. Finally, the two bumps on its head would likely be used for intra-species fighting, with each animal's head being placed flat against the other, the tusks and bumps allowing a certain degree of grip before each pushed the other until one of the two relented. And that's it for Speculative Biology look into some crazy fossils. As mentioned during the video, fossils cannot always be assembled and interpreted properly, and this was even more of an issue back when we had less knowledge about extinct animals as a whole, so it can be a bit unfair to blame people for their mistakes in this regard. But still, one can't argue with how fun these wrong reconstructions are, be they accidental, intentional, or just fictitious fabrications. When making this, I tried to take a hybrid approach, taking these organisms at face value, but still trying to modify what was necessary for it to look biologically viable, which, I must say, was a ton of fun to do. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you'd like to see more episodes like this, please like and subscribe so I know to make a part 2, and tell me in the comments what fossils you'd like to see brought back to life. And before we leave, here's a look at some of our community's awesome art. First up, here's a drawing based on our explanation of the real-life inspirations behind the basilisk. That one time I didn't make a new creature to go along with the video, so Nickname here made one instead. And also here are two drawings of the Zmi, the sapient dragons from our World of Dragons series, by frequent contributor Shattered Reality. We can see a Zmi both posing by itself and hanging out with one of Shattered's own sapient dragons. Thanks for this awesome art, fellas, please keep them coming. And of course, here's a big thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships, and who helped a lot in bringing this episode to the channel. Remember, you too can join in if you want to support the channel, see all of our creatures and videos ahead of time, and help mold them into shape. As you can see, we can all make mistakes when doing things carelessly, and that also applies to surfing the internet. But you can stop worrying about that thanks to today's sponsor, NordVPN. Whenever you are online, you risk your information falling into the hands of hackers. NordVPN helps protect you by changing your IP address, securing online traffic through encryption, blocking malware and trackers, warning you if your data has been compromised, and a ton more benefits, making the dangers of surfing the web practically extinct. Like, like dinosaurs. So click the link on the description and get NordVPN to regain your internet security. And you also support the channel in the process. Thanks NordVPN, and thank you all for watching. And see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.